Chinese electric cars are shaking up the global auto market, challenging the dominance of legacy brands. But how China managed to reshape the industry, and what does this mean for the future? So, the EU recently conducted an investigation into Chinese EV subsidies, revealing widespread state support across the supply chain. These subsidies were everywhere.
Global markets are now flooded with cheaper Chinese electric cars. And their price is kept artificially low by huge state subsidies. This is distorting our market.
Public funds were found at every level, from raw material extraction and battery production to vehicle manufacturing and even shipping services. These efforts have propelled Chinese EV sector to unprecedented heights. China's government has heavily subsidized new energy vehicles since 2009, initially targeting pilot cities. By 2012, it rolled out a development plan with ambitious production and ownership targets. Over the years, China has invested more than 28 billion in EV subsidies. Recently, it announced an extension of the program, totaling 72 billion until 2027. These incentives, which started at $4,200 per vehicle, are set to gradually decrease but remain a key driver for the industry growth. In 2023 alone, the country sold over 8.1 million EVs, representing 59% of the global sales. The International Energy Agency forecasted that in 2024, China will reach to 10.1 million EV sales, representing 61% of the global EV market. For context, EVs globally accounted for 15% of all vehicle sales in 2023. Let's at first review the EU's response to Chinese aggressive EV expansion. Chinese automakers are rapidly expanded into Europe. In 2023, Chinese EVs captured over 20% of the EU market, up from just 3% in 2020. This sudden influx has squeezed European manufacturers, limiting their ability to raise price and shrinking profit margins. In response, the EU is fighting back. To protect its automotive industry, the EU has implemented countervailing duties on Chinese EV imports. Tesla, which manufactures in China, faces a 7.8% duty. BYD has been hit with 17% tariff, while Geely faces 18.8%. Companies cooperated with the EU investigation are subject to a 20.7% duty, and others face rates as high as 35.3%. These tariffs are in addition to the existing 10%. But tariffs alone aren't enough. The EU plans to invest in its own EV supply chain to reduce dependency on China, focusing on raw material sourcing and battery production.
But securing supplies is only a first step. The processing of these metals is just as critical. And today, China controls the global processing industry. Almost 90% of rare earth and 60% of lithium are processed in China. So we will identify strategic projects all along the supply chain, from extracting to refining, from processing to recycling, and we will build up strategic reserves where supply is at risk.
These efforts is critical because the automotive sector is a cornerstone of Europe's economy. It directly and indirectly employs 13.8 million people, accounting for 6.1% of EU's total workforce. Within this sector, 2.6 million people are engaged in the direct manufacturing of vehicles and 11.2 million in the indirect employment. However, this figure might decline as job cuts loom, a topic I've explored in detail in my previous video, link in the corner. And now let's have a look at the US. The US-China trade conflict has been heated up since 2018.
Are you concerned at all about the growing belligerence between China and the US?
I think that should be a concern for everyone.
When both countries imposed mutual tariffs on each other's goods. For American automakers, the impact was severe. China raised tariffs on US cars from 15% to almost 40%, making them far less competitive and causing a sharp decline in sales.
Nor I asked for these tariffs. In fact, I was surprised when they were announced. Tesla competes quite well in the market in China with no tariffs and no differential support. In general, I'm in favor of no tariffs. I'm also actually in favor of no tax incentives for EVs, but provided that there are also the tax incentives for oil and gas must also be eliminated.
Tesla, heavily reliant on export to China at the time, struggled until it opened a Shanghai manufacturing plant in 2019. In 2024, President Biden increased the US border tax on Chinese-made EVs from 25% to 100%.
A 100% tariff on electric vehicles made in China. People say, wow.
And Canada, by the way, followed the same.
Shortly, we will be introducing a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles.
Looking ahead, a newly selected President Trump has signaled that he might go even further, targeting not just Chinese factories, but also Chinese brands benefiting from trade agreements, such as those producing cars in Mexico for the US market.
I will impose whatever tariffs are required, 100%, 200%, 1,000%. They're not going to sell one car into the United States.
As the US and EU impose strict trade measures, Chinese manufacturers are shifting their focus to other regions. They are aggressively expanding into emerging markets in South America, Africa, Asia, including the Middle East. As this volume chart shows, Asia is by far the largest market for any automaker. By leveraging production overcapacity, Chinese manufacturers are entering these markets with competitive pricing and totally reshaping the market's condition. Their strategy is clear: establish dominance in regions where Western automakers have limited presence. This approach challenges established players and accelerates the global transformation of the industry. The rise of Chinese automakers marks a pivotal shift in the global automotive market. By the decade's end, we are likely to see the industry divided into two dominant spheres. One led by Western brands and the other by Chinese manufacturers. Each will reshape economic and competitive conditions in their respective regions. Interested in how Chinese companies and trade policies are reshaping the global auto industry? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more content. My name is Bogdan and you have been watching the Automotive Overview. See you next time.